Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about top 10 fruits that are diabetic friendly. We've always heard that one should consume at least 5 to 6 cups of fruits and vegetables in a day. Well, I must tell you, fruits and vegetables come under two different food groups. Well, one can consume 5 to 6 or even more cups of vegetables in a day. But when it comes down to fruits, if you're somebody who's suffering from obesity, who has diabetes, who has non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases, then you should not consume more than one serving of fruits in a day. Now I'll tell you why. What are fruits basically made up of? Fruits contain around 50% glucose, 50% fructose, plus or minus 25% more fructose or less fructose depending upon the fruits you're eating. Well, glucose, we know raises our blood sugar levels. It causes a spike in insulin. And insulin, as we know, is a fat storage hormone. On the other hand, fructose. Well, it would not raise our blood sugar levels per se, but it gets metabolized by liver. And excess consumption of fruits, fruit juices, will lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases. So first of all, the top 3 fruits which I'm going to talk about, well, a lot of people would identify them as vegetables because they're not sweet in nature. But these top 3 fruits are not sweet at all. The first is avocado. Now, avocado has a glycemic index of 15, net carbohydrates of 2. In a while, I'm just going to talk about glycemic index and net carbs. The second fruit is olives. Glycemic index of 15, net carbs of 3. Then it's tomatoes. Tomatoes have glycemic index of 15 and net carbs of 3. So what are glycemic index? Glycemic index refers to the carbohydrate contained in a food that instantly raises your blood sugar levels. For example, if you're having any food which contains around 50 grams of net carbs. Now, net carb means carbohydrates without fiber. And this is compared to a reference number like 100, which is of glucose. And then you measure it on a scale. So this is how it comes from. So a low glycemic index food will be less than 55. A medium glycemic index would be anywhere between 55 to 70. And a high glycemic index would be greater than 70. Obviously, foods that come under low glycemic index means they gradually raise your blood sugar levels. And high means instantly raising your blood sugar levels. If you're somebody who is suffering from any kind of metabolic problem like diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular problems, non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases, then you should follow a different scale. Now this is a reference scale of somebody who is having metabolic problem. They should follow this scale. So a low glycemic index would be less than 20. Medium glycemic index would be anywhere between 20 to 40 and a high glycemic index would be greater than 50. Now, apart from glycemic index, there is something which is called glycemic load. It refers to the amount of food we are eating at a given particular time, for a meal, for a snack. So how do we calculate glycemic load? So it is calculated like this. You take glycemic load is equal to glycemic index. You multiply by the carbohydrate content in that food in grams. And then you divide it by 100. This is a formula. So for example, if you're having rice at a meal, for lunch or dinner, and you're consuming around 100 grams of rice at a given time. So rice has 31 grams of carbohydrates. The glycemic index is 98. So when you put these values here and when you calculate, the glycemic load comes to 30. Now this is the glycemic load reference which you should follow. After putting these values here, it is coming to 30. So 30 obviously comes under the high glycemic load. Now a lot of people say, dates are, very diabetic friendly. So let's see when you're putting it on the glycemic load, how does it feel? So 48 grams of dates, which are roughly around 2 dates we are having at a given time. The carbohydrate content is 36 grams. Glycemic index is 42. And when you're calculating it with this formula, it comes to 17. So 17 comes under the medium glycemic load. Now obviously dates are better than rice, correct? But what if we now calculate about avocado? Like I mentioned above, the 100 grams of avocado would give you around 2 grams of carbohydrates. Glycemic index is 15. So the glycemic load with this formula comes to 0.3, which is the load, glycemic load. So that's why we always prefer avocado as a fruit for somebody who is diabetic. Now you can always reduce the glycemic load of a particular food by adding a lot of fiber, a lot of vegetables to it. For example, if you're consuming 100 grams of rice, which is giving you around 30 glycemic load, reduce the amount of rice, add more vegetables to it. So when you're adding more fiber to it, the glycemic load reduces. So that's just a tip. So a diabetic person should always consider these points whenever they are consuming fruits. The carbohydrate content in a food. Higher the carbohydrate, higher is going to be the insulin spike. The fructose content in the food. Higher the fructose, it gets metabolized by liver, leading to liver diseases. So just be mindful of the fructose present in the fruits. The third is the glycemic index. Higher the glycemic index of the fruit, there are going to be greater blood sugar fluctuations. And last, fiber content. Now that is the best part about eating fruits. Higher the fiber content, there's going to be slower absorption of blood sugar levels in your body, leading to low rise in blood sugar levels. We've always heard that apples are diabetic friendly. See now how we're going to understand this concept. 100 grams of apples contains 12.4 grams of sugar, out of which 76% is fructose. Now they have a high fructose content. The fiber is 1.7 grams per 100 grams. Now there are a lot of fruits which has much high fiber content than apples. If you compare apples to berries, now berries becomes a much better choice than apples because apples are 5 times more sweeter than berry. Now apples would be a better choice definitely if you're going for any kind of sweets, some sugary treats, chocolate desserts and all that. Definitely apples would be a better choice. But there are other fruits like the remaining fruits which I'm just going to mention, which are going to be much better choice than having apples. So these are the remaining top 7 fruits which I have now mentioned. Now I've categorized them in terms of sugar, the carb content in the fruit, the fiber present in the food, glycemic index and the glycemic load. So on the fourth comes guavas. They contains 9 grams of sugar, 5.4 grams of fiber, 12 is the glycemic index, 1.68 is the glycemic load. Fifth comes blueberries. 9 grams of sugar, 4 grams of fiber, 53 is the glycemic index, 5 is the glycemic load. On 6 is apricots, peaches, 9 grams of sugar, 2 grams of fiber, 34 is the glycemic index and this is 3.1 is the glycemic load. Now these are all 100 grams of fruits. That's the serving size we are talking about. 7 would be grapefruit, which is a citrus fruit. 7 grams is sugar, 2 grams is fiber, 25 is the glycemic index and 2.3 is the glycemic load. Now the last 3 fruits are keto friendly. Your Indian berries like jamun, Indian gooseberries like amla, they all come under these categories. You can have them. Raspberries are 4 grams of sugar, 7 is the fiber, 32 is glycemic index and 1.6 is the glycemic load. So as you see, we see the sugar levels are low, the fiber content is quite high. Glycemic index and glycemic load is quite low in these foods. Blackberries are 4 grams sugar, 5 grams is the fiber, 25 is the glycemic index, 1.1 is the glycemic load. And the last is lemon. 3 grams of sugar, 3 grams fiber, glycemic index is 20 and glycemic load is 1.2. So like I said earlier, fruits, even if they are healthy, should always be consumed in moderation. Well, what's not to be consumed in moderation are vegetables. You can have as much as you like. I hope this video was helpful. I'll be posting more videos related to nutrition and health. This is Menka Vijan signing off. Thank you.